Welcome to the Metal Detecting Podcast, brought to you by XP Metal Detectors. We're digging the plugs and pinpointing the topics you want to hear. Now here's your hosts, Dave Kimball and Grant Hansen.
This show is brought to you by XP Metal Detectors. XP Metal Detectors is a high-end, innovative metal detector company with great machines and great pinpointers. For more information, go to xpmetaldetectors.com. For a dealer near you, try a Google search or go to xpdeus-usa.com. Hello and welcome to the Metal Detecting Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kimball, coming to you from Central Oklahoma, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Grant Hansen, coming to you from New Jersey. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk to somebody about drones tonight because I have been feverishly looking into it and wanting to get one, so I think he'll be able to guide me in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, right. Tonight we're talking to Don Price, and we're talking about drones. Yeah, so a lot of people are asking, what does drones have to do with metal detecting? Well, if you're out in a field in a big ghost town or somewhere, most of the ghost towns we find are just fields, and there's nothing there anymore. But you get you a drone and fly overhead, you can see just where to go, and it really narrows the search down and helps a lot on research.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the topography of the land, especially big, vast farm fields. If I could see any depressions, maybe that's where the activity is. And I've also heard people use them for scouting out cellar holes because you can kind of see, through the tree line to see the foundation where you might not see that if you're just walking next to it.
That's right. Yeah. And there's different cameras that you can get for drones. You can get infrared, they can do LiDAR, they can do all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be one of those things that once you get into it, you're going to get more and more into it, kind of like metal detecting.
Yes, exactly. And just like metal detecting also, you don't want to buy the cheap drone because you buy I got a buddy of mine who came out here on 4th of July, and it was before I bought my drone, and he was bragging about this drone that he just bought at the mall for I think it was about $200 he spent on that thing. We get out there in my front yard. I got 5 acres of land. He flew that thing straight up in the air, and it just kept going. Never seen it again.
That's got to be the worst. It's like you're watching $200 just fly away.
And he just opened it, too. I mean, first flight, he just flew away. So if you're going to buy a drone, definitely want to spend some money on it because nowadays even the cheaper drones do have GPS stuff going for them, but you're doing away with camera stuff. I mean, you won't be able to see footage very good. The image quality is pretty bad, and so you might have to go for a Phantom. Even a used Phantom is going to cost you anywhere from $400 to $500. It's just like a metal detector. If you buy a metal detector, you buy a cheap one just to get started, and soon after that, you're going to want to upgrade.
Yeah, it'd be interesting too because I'm pretty confident I'm going to get one. And am I going to just use it for scouting, or am I going to try to use it for some other fun stuff or get a license? And it'd be interesting to see how the hobby of droning grows for me.
Yeah, so when we come back, let's talk to Don Price all about drones, and I'm sure a lot of you will be hooked after we talk to him. We'll be right back. If you are looking for more information about XP products such as dealers or updates, then check out MetalDetectorsAmericas.com.
Hello, this is Daniel from XP Metal Detectors Americas, and I just wanted to let you know about the XP Metal Detectors Americas.com website, which is full of information on the K-use metal detector and the ORX metal detector. Both are wireless and do all aspects of metal detecting, which is gold prospecting, coins, jewelry, and relics.
Tonight, we welcome a guest who is an expert on the topic that many of us are interested in, He is an expert on using drones and has started a popular group called OKC Drones. So let's give a warm welcome to Don Price. How you doing, Don?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Yeah. Thanks for coming on to the show. I'm very excited to learn about drones tonight. I know Dave has some experience in them. I have zero experience. So first, how about like a history lesson? Can you tell us how you were first introduced to drones and when?
Well, I started flying remote control aircraft almost 40 years ago. And back in the 70s, I decided to put a Brownie camera on the bottom of one of my remote control airplanes. And that's when I got hooked. I got into professional photography, and I kind of got bored with the remote control side and the photography side and kind of let them go. And then some idiot decided to build a vehicle specific for remote control aircraft and photography. And that was when the drones were born. And that's when I got hooked. I've been flying drones for about 11 years now, and I started doing it professionally about 5 years ago. And that's what I do now. It's been a really fun hobby to get into. I currently am primarily doing aerial videos for a pyrotechnics company here in Oklahoma, the largest pyrotechnics company in Oklahoma, where I go out and video their fireworks shows. And we do about 60 shows a year. The biggest ones we have, of course, during the July 4th week. Last year I did 11 shows in 10 days, all from a drone.
Oh, wow. That is very cool. Yeah. So how has your interest grown over all the years that you've been doing this?
Well, as the technology improves and as it has improved in the drones, the interest just keeps going up and up. The modern drones today are basically flying computers. They do just about everything for you to where you can focus on whatever your interest is. In my case, it's videography and photography. The other side of drones is the racing drones, which has become really popular in the past few years. There's actually a drone racing league that has a yearly competition that you could win $1 million if you take the purse.
Wow.
Yes, that's a DRL, right?
Yep.
Yes.
The Drone Racing League, that started up a couple of years ago, and it's just really taken off. And again, this is as the technology improves, the drones get better, and you can focus more on what you want to do. If you want to race, if you want to do the videography and photography, it keeps getting better. It hasn't started falling off yet.
Yes. And the DRL is actually on ESPN. I don't know if it still is, but it was there for a little bit.
Yes, it is.
What's racing like? Is it a sprint? Is it speed, or is it obstacles and maneuvers?
It's speed through an obstacle course. There's a camera on the drone that gives the racer what's called a first-person view, or FPV. You wear goggles, so it's like you're actually inside the drone when you're racing.
Wow.
Very fast-paced. You really have to have good hand-eye coordination. I tried it for a little while. I mainly did it because I wanted the experience of building the drone and racing my own drone. But I'm 56 years old. That's too quick for me. I'm getting old.
Right. I built one, and I've done it for a little bit too, and it is disorienting. You almost have to sit down while doing it because it makes you kind of dizzy every now and then.
Yeah, it does. Now there's another an offshoot of drones that started a couple years ago called Tiny Whoops. And Tiny Whoops, that's tiny, WHOOPS, are very small, 2.5 inch across drones, very fast, but you crash them into the walls, they bounce back. They're like Matchbox cars or Hot Wheels cars. They're virtually indestructible, but it's done in a much slower speed. And I was doing it in my house, racing through my house, driving my dog crazy and everything. So there's different levels to it.
Wow. That sounds fun. It kind of reminds me almost like a Star Wars thing with Luke Skywalker.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Cool. The pod racing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, with all your years of experience in drones, what prompted you to start your group, OKC Drones?
Well, at the time I started about 6 years ago. There really wasn't a community in Oklahoma for drone enthusiasts. And I wanted something not only to get people together, but to also raise awareness in the community. Drones have had a really negative stigma over the past few years. People think that they're invading their privacy, that that they interfere with a person's daily routine. And I wanted to change that and show people that drones are completely different. We don't care about spying on people. I mean, it's the last thing that I want to do is see what my neighbor's doing in their backyard. And on the other hand, if I did want to spy on my neighbor, I'm just going to take my cell phone and stick it up over the fence. I'm not going to risk my $2,000 drone to see what my neighbor's doing. So it was kind of to get like-minded people together, but it was also to raise awareness to the public that, you know, we're not what they think we are. We're out there to have fun. Some of us are out there to make money, and just to be a different part of a new technology that's come out.
Can you tell us more about your group and about your meet and greets? I actually attended a couple of the meet and greets, and it was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, we have almost 2,000 members now. Like I said, I started it up 6 years ago. We do meet and greets in the summer, in the spring and summer. We usually have them about once a month. I've had as many as 300 people come to a meet and greet. We get everybody can fly their drones whenever they want. I think the most I've had in the air at one time is probably 18 to 20 drones. They all operate on different frequencies, and they're digital, so that one drone doesn't interfere with the other. But again, it's to get members together to share their experiences, and also we invite the public to come out. I've had the local news agencies come out and do stories on it, just again as kind of a public service to let folks know what we're about and what it is that we do.
Oh yeah, I was out there when the news was out there, and me and my wife were on the TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about, you know, doing some videos and photography for a pyrotechnics company. What kind of photography and videography do you like capturing on a personal level?
Anything. Seeing things from the air gives you a whole new perspective on everything. Like I said, I was into professional photography many years ago. My knees gave out, so I couldn't, you know, getting up and down from doing photography was very difficult. But when you get a drone in the air and you see the skyline and you see things from that perspective, it just changes your whole outlook on everything. So I do any kind of aerial photography. I love it. I have done work for national news, CBS, gone out and covered some really bad storms we've had here in Oklahoma. I've done TV commercials where they required an aerial shot of a particular building. In this case was the downtown area of Oklahoma City. But any type of aerial photography and videography, I like looking at architectural things. Our Oklahoma City has a very beautiful Capitol building with some really incredible aspects to it. We've got gargoyles on top of it. On the very top of the building is a Indian made out of copper that nobody gets to see unless you see it from an aerial perspective. So the drones give us that ability to see things completely different than we would see on the ground, and that's what's got me excited about it. The cameras also that are on these drones have improved 100-fold over the last 5 years. For instance, the camera that I have on my drone right now, there's a company called Hasselblad, which builds the most expensive camera in the world. When Neil Armstrong went to the moon, Hasselblad was the camera that was on his chest taking all of those pictures. Well, the company that builds the drone that I fly now bought Hasselblad 3 years ago, and they put a Hasselblad camera on one of their foldable drones, and that's what I use now for my video and photography, videography and photography. So the quality of the cameras has just taken leaps and bounds over the past few years, and it's only getting better.
Wow. So how heavy is that camera?
This particular drone is under 3 pounds. It's a very, very light camera, but it uses the exact same sensor that they have in their $20,000 camera.
Wow. And do most drones come with a camera, or do you kind of piece those out separately?
It depends on what direction you want to go. A lot of professional photographers are building bigger drones and using their professional digital camera on it. You can get into, like, say, for instance, the DJI Mavic 2 comes with a camera already set up, and it's an amazing camera. So it really depends on what direction you want to go. As far as I'm concerned, I want something that's portable, that I really don't have to do a lot of messing with. I get it out, turn it on, get it up in the air, and that's it. from, the professional photographers and professional videographers, they might want to go to the next level with the different cameras with the interchangeable lenses. So they'll buy the larger drones and custom fit their cameras to that drone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so as I said, I built a FPV drone, and I really like the goggles, although they can be disorienting. Do you ever use goggles with your drone to be able to see better or to block out the light, or you just use your phone?
No, that's another thing. There's newer technologies coming around in the screens that we use. The particular radio that I have for my primary drone has got a screen that is visible in direct sunlight. And I mean, the sun can be beaming right straight down on it, and I can see it just as well as if there was no sun out at all. So I don't necessarily need goggles. The goggles, in my opinion, are primarily for the racing drones to give you that first-person view. For camera and videography, it's better just to have a screen, and we can vary the sizes of our screens by whatever device we use. In some cases, I'll use an iPad Pro, which has got an 11-inch screen on it, and with that, I can get higher detail. But for my day-to-day shots, and when I'm shooting the fireworks videos, I shoot with a particular screen that's built into my radio.
What kind of radio do you use?
I use the DJI smart controller.
Okay.
It's primarily designed for the Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom, and they just now updated it to be able to be used with the Phantom 4 Pro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's got the screen on it. The brightness of a screen is determined by what they call a nit, N-I-T, and the higher the number, the nit number, is the brighter the screen is. And this particular screen on the smart controller is 1,400 nits, which is almost the brightest you can get out there as far as screens is concerned. And they designed this screen specifically for daytime use flying drones.
It's just so much that goes into this to learn. You mentioned you do this professionally. Is it a competitive market, or are you in very high demand?
It's very competitive. In order to fly commercially, in order to make money, you have to be licensed. You have to go through the FAA and get what's called a 107 license to fly the drones. Once you get that license, and there's I think 240,000 people in the United States that are licensed with a 107. Once you get that 107, then you can fly for money and make money. And some of the jobs you can make quite a bit of money on them. We're talking $175 to $300 an hour, depending on the job.
That's pretty good. I mean, but you've got expenses tied into your equipment too. So definitely, considering your skill set and the equipment you bring to the table, it's a reasonable price, I'd say.
Right. Now, I am not, I got in this as a hobby. It's always been a hobby to me. It's the first hobby I've ever had, and I've had many that I can actually make money with it. So for me, when I get contracted to do a job, I'm only doing that job because I want to, and it's fun. It's not something that I'm going to go out and, I rely on that as my paycheck. I'm a disabled veteran, so I'm 100% disabled veteran. So for me, it's added income to what I make now, but it's fun. It's always been about fun. I've done real estate. Like I said, I've done TV commercials, and it's that excitement factor that I have out of it more than anything else. Now, there are other people that do it, but that is their primary income. And you can make a good living off of it if that's the direction you want to take.
Yeah. I know I work for the American Red Cross, and you mentioned some Oklahoma storms. We do have, I believe, some volunteers who help out with their drones to do damage assessment for disasters. It's really, really helpful.
Yeah. We have a lot of search and rescue efforts that go out, especially during tornado season when more got hit by the big tornadoes. We had drones out helping search for people and just get a better damage assessment. We also have to weigh the risk of flying a drone with emergency responses, with emergency helicopters coming in and stuff like that. So it kind of goes both ways. But we've done a lot of search and rescue stuff for lost kids. I've been involved in search and rescue for lost animals before.
And other drones.
And I've done that a couple of times too.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, if there is a some type of emergency, fire, wrecks, or something like that, don't run out and grab your drone and just start flying it. There are a lot of regulations around that keep people from flying their drones around hazardous areas like that because of helicopters and whatnot.
The FAA regulations is that drones are not allowed to fly in emergency situations, like going out and flying over a car accident or wildfires or stuff like that. It's very, very strict. The FAA is very strict about that. Now, when I say that we do it, I'm in direct communication with fire departments, with police departments, with emergency departments, and get authorization through them and the FAA in order to do that. So you never want to get into a situation where, a tornado comes through and you stick your drone up in the air to help without communicating with emergency responders that are actually on the scene. Those are the only instances that I've ever done it in an emergency response, is working directly with the local authorities to aid them in what they're doing.
Yeah, so I saw you had an infrared camera on your drone. Could using this technology help a person find stuff like hidden caves and crevices?
Oh, absolutely. There's like I said, the technology in the cameras keeps improving. Now we've got cameras that are based in LiDAR, which is using laser light to light the ground up. And there's the infrared technology is improving. The resolution that we have on these new infrared cameras is improving to where you can get a lot of detail in areas that you never could get before. The infrared cameras have different modes where you can colorize an area and tell very, very minute temperature variations, and be able to detect water underground, or depending on the time of day, if the sun is high in the sky, you can tell whether there's a piece of metal in the ground, whether there's a piece of plastic in the ground, just by how it heats differently than the surrounding areas. So yeah, you can use LiDAR, you can use infrared in metal detecting and doing anything like that. There's also a new technology that just started out about a year ago where they're doing wireless charging for drones, which they put a coil up in the air. It's probably 20 foot across. The drone would lower down into this coil, and it's off the ground, and it would charge the drone pretty much like wireless charging on a telephone is, where you lay your phone down on a charger. This can also be used the other way around, and putting a coil on a drone, very similar to metal detectors, the way they're using them now. And you could do the same thing and detect minute magnetic fields in the ground that could be put off from some certain metals, the exact same way that your metal detectors work. The coils and the metal detectors, but they're doing it on a larger scale from above the ground.
That is pretty interesting.
I like with the larger pieces of metal, I start thinking of shipwrecks, things like
exactly.
that.
Huh.
And when you start combining these technologies, the LiDAR and the infrared and the wireless technologies, the coils in the air, I mean, you're talking about no limits to what you can do with them.
See, in Oklahoma, I know you have heard a lot of the stories of Jesse James and treasures and stuff like that that's apparently supposedly buried out around, Wichita Mountains and whatnot. I imagine something like that would help somebody do some research with that to find hidden crevices around that area or caves or anything like that.
Oh yeah, when you're talking about, again, from the photography standpoint, when you see things from the sky, it's completely different than when you're on the ground walking through trees, and the amount of area that you can cover is just astronomical compared to what you would cover on the ground. So yeah, having a knowledge of what is in that area and being able to narrow it down on a map, and then taking a drone up and narrowing it down even more than that, you could benefit in so many ways in so many different fields.
So you were talking a little bit earlier about the negative stigma that drones have, maybe within the media or other people, and people think, oh, maybe it's used for spying or whatever. What would you tell somebody to say, look, this is not what drones are used for. This is really what we use them for?
Well, the problem is that the main reason people fear anything is that they don't understand it. I have run into people, I've been out flying my drone, and somebody would come up to me aggressively and say, what are you doing? Are you spying on me? what's happening. And I'll show them the radio and say, look, this is what I'm doing. I have no interest in what you're doing or what anybody else is doing. I'm doing it for this reason. Once they see what I see, they start to understand. Unfortunately, what happens with me is I will stick the radio in their hands and let them fly, and then they're really buggered because then they're going to go out and spend a few $1,000s on a drone themselves. And that's the way it's gone just about every time I've done it. Once people see exactly what it is that we do and see the benefits of it, they change their minds right away.
Yes. Exactly.
So when I do TV interviews with the local media, I try and put that across and say, look, there's easier ways for me to spy on you in your backyard. There's much easier ways. What I'm doing is completely different than what you think.
Right. Yeah. And when you're up that high anyways, you can barely make out what somebody's doing in their backyard anyways. I mean, you're not barely even looking down at somebody's backyard. You're more looking at, for me, I'm looking at the landscape and everything else.
Yeah. And that's another thing. My camera on my drone is not zoomable. So basically, it's like having a cell phone without a zoom on it. What you see, if there's somebody 100 feet away, you could barely make out what they're doing. And it's the same thing with a drone. Now, there are some drones like the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom that has zoom capabilities, but even in that, the zoom is not good enough to be able to make out any details. If you can see the drone in the air and it's more than 100 feet away, I'm not even able to tell whether you're male or female from that altitude. I can't tell anything. If in order for me to be able to see anything of any consequence, I've got to be below 50 feet. And at that point in time, you can pick up a rock and throw it at it if you want to.
There are some bad apples out there, though, and they try to fly drones where they're not allowed to, like around airports and helipads. Are you worried that actions like that? There was not too long ago, I remember this FPV video of this guy flying right over an airplane, like coming into for a landing, which was insane.
Yeah.
Are you worried about people like that causing more regulations against recreational drones?
Well, the thing is those cases are so few and far between, and the FAA and the drone community is working so hard to educate people. Right now, any drone that weighs over 250 grams has got to be registered with the FAA. And in order to register the drone, you have to take a knowledge test on their website. It's not a pass and fail kind of thing. It's a way to educate you more. The FAA is working very hard to educate the public. And the more they push for education, the more people know, and the fewer cases of ignorance that we have happen. And I think that's only going to improve with time. On the other aspect of that, the FAA is changing regulations, making it safer every day for us to fly out there. And drone companies like DJI, for instance, are making drones harder to fly in areas that they're not supposed to. For instance, if I was to go down and fly at our local airport, Will Rogers Airport, my drone won't even take off if it's within 5 miles of that airport. It's designed into the software that it will not allow it to do that.
Right.
And that's the way a lot of the pro-consumer drones are going nowadays, is more erring towards safety rather than anything else.
Yes.
Now, it's still easy for someone to go down and buy a Walmart drone for, $50 and take it and fly it wherever they want. But again, the education part of it is the FAA and the drone community is pushing for more education and letting people know, it doesn't matter what drone you have, you can't fly it in this location. You have to get permission to fly it in that location. And there are regulations that we have to follow.
In addition to the laws and the regulations, what is some of the good etiquette that drone flyers should abide by?
Well, I'll tell you. For instance, if I'm flying from my home, I'm not going to fly over my neighbor's house. If I am going to fly over my neighbor's house, I'm going to call them up and say, look, I'm going to be flying my drone. You might see it in your backyard. I'm doing this. Really has nothing to do with you. I'm not doing anything nefarious. And, just being able to communicate with somebody else. And like I said earlier, if I'm out flying and somebody comes up to me and asks me a question, I'm going to do everything I can to answer that question, to be as friendly and non-confrontational with them and show them that, we're not out there doing anything wrong. We're just out there having fun with what we have.
Oh, yeah. So a few years ago in Oklahoma, someone was trying to pass a bill that would allow you to shoot down a drone. At least that's what I heard from the media, and if it was over your property, would this act actually be a federal crime, seeing it as illegal to shoot down any flying craft, not to mention shooting your gun in the air?
Yeah, unfortunately, that whole bill was misinterpreted by the public. What the bill was that you would not be held financially responsible for the damage to the drone if you were to shoot it down. Unfortunately, what they didn't explain to the public was you cannot shoot a firearm within the city limits, number one. Number two, it is illegal on a federal level to shoot at any type of aircraft, whether it's a drone, an airplane, or anything like that. And they didn't explain that when they wrote that bill. Now, the bill didn't pass. The author of the bill was actually arrested on other charges. But what it was making to where if I shot down a drone, I'm not financially responsible for that drone. But like I said, again, it is a federal crime to shoot down a drone, to shoot at any kind of aircraft.
Yes, and this type of mentality is kind of scary, seeing how much publicity this got and how, like you said, it was misinterpreted anyways, but how people thought that they can just shoot down a drone who they saw flying over their property or the neighbor's property or whichever. This kind of, like I said, it's just kind of scary thinking that people think it will be okay and start shooting guns in the air.
I alluded to this earlier. The cases of this happening are so few and far between. Unfortunately, the media gets a hold of one single case and it gets blown out of proportion. But you never, in all of my years of flying drones, I've heard of one particular incident in Oklahoma where a guy got his drone shot down, and it was completely a case of mistaken identity. The guy was up flying his drone. The neighbor thought that he was flying over trying to take pictures of his farm. He thought it was PETA, and he shot the drone down. There are regulations now coming out that you cannot fly a drone over farm communities because of the problems that PETA has caused with farmers, and they successfully lobbied to have restrictions put on it, and they were actually successful. And I absolutely understand what they're wanting. You got somebody out there trying to take pictures of a cow ranch and show that they're abusing the animals when they're clearly not, but it still causes problems for farmers and other situations like that. Yeah. So it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all this talk of drones, I don't have one again, but I'm kind of in the metal detecting hobby. I've got just about all the equipment I need, and I think a drone is the next on my list because I think it could obviously benefit for scouting and things like that. When you're looking at the landscape, can you actually see like depressions in the land and other things that might show, hey, there was activity in this spot, but you just can't see it from ground level?
Absolutely. If you've ever flown in an airplane and the detail that you can see in the ground from 35,000 feet is incredible. You can see crops, you can see farmlands and stuff like that. Now bring that down to 200 feet and, you're blowing up what you can actually see. And yeah, you can see where there used to be a house in a location. Mm-hmm. I've flown out, done surveys of fields, and you could tell where a barn used to be or a house used to be or some sort of structure. And that could really aid in the metal detecting. I mean, you're out looking for artifacts that were related to a piece of property, a home, or whatever, and using the drone to see that from the air could greatly benefit what you're doing.
But how else have you used your drone to help out on local police to find something like for a fugitive, or for example?
Yeah, I've done fugitive searches. I've done a couple of police chases where the police chases ended and the person has got out and run, and I've used my thermal imaging camera to try and locate that person. I've done, like I said, children's searches where the child wandered away from home and they couldn't find it. I've gone out with my thermal camera and we actually found a 3-year-old that was out in the woods. Mm-hmm. I did a search a couple of years ago where an older gentleman who had Alzheimer's had wandered away from his house, and we just put up a regular drone this was before the thermal imaging really became available to us in the drone world, took out a regular camera drone, was able to find his vehicle and was able to spot the tracks that he left just from walking away from the vehicle, and we're able to give the ground searchers a better idea of where he was at. So again, whenever you're doing something from the air, it changes your perspective on what you're doing and makes it that much easier.
It kind of reminds me of, there's this reality show a couple of years ago where they were essentially, hey, you're going to try to be a fugitive and escape from us and for a month or something like that. And I remember some scenes of them running and all of a sudden just a drone popping up. And as soon as the fugitives saw the drone, they're like, we're done. We're done.
Yeah. I think I remember
We're not going to outrun that.
It's funny you say that. Reality shows, just about any show that you watch on Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, any of those channels, you'll see drone footage. In fact, this last the Daytona 500 that was shot yesterday, they had racing drones that were actually involved in the videoing of that. The racing drones following the cars going down the back straightaway. They've been using drones in NASCAR to help with videos, and it improves the whole experience.
Oh, yeah. The freestyling technique of the racing drones is crazy. I mean, people are doing some really insane, crazy, cool stuff. And I seen them chasing motorcycle guys and through dirt trails into the woods and chasing cars around and everything. And they really get some really great footage that you would never expect you ever see. I mean, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, and now the cameras, like for instance, GoPro's got a new camera out that has got image stabilization built into it. So they're able to go another step above by having stabilized imagery on the racing drones. And it's amazing some of the stuff they can get. If you go on YouTube and do a search for any hobby, any type of motorsports, and you put the word drone before it, there will be a video of it, either being out in a boat, a motorcycle, a race car, drifters. A lot of these drifting guys are getting drones involved, and it changes the way you look at everything.
So how do you feel about the death of GoPro session cameras that everybody use on FPV drones that just kind of went out?
Once GoPro and DJI just came out with an action camera too. Once they started improving and getting into the image stabilization on the drones, people went away from the session completely, because the session was for a specific type of action, and it really wasn't all that great of a camera. Now that GoPro and DJI both have got action cams that take it to the next level, the session just went away.
Well, I know what was so attracting for it was that the size was so small, and it was easy to 3D print a little case for it and put it on top of your drone. And they did away with it. I think the GoPro, the newer one now, is a lot bigger and looks almost like a full size GoPro.
Yeah, but the thing is, the new racing drones are so much more powerful, and they're getting a lot more power into a lot smaller package, so they can handle the weight of a full-size GoPro, and it doesn't aerodynamically change the drone that much. You go on there and see some of these 5-inch and 2.5-inch racing drones that they've got out there. They are absolutely incredible in what they can do.
I was going to say, I have a GoPro Hero 7, and as far as image stabilization, it's pretty remarkable. I bounce around and the footage is always smooth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the thing with the photography and the videography drones is we have 3-axis gimbals on ours, so the image stabilization is mechanical. When GoPro came out with the Hero 7 and the Hero 8, and they put that image stabilization inside the software, it changed a lot of stuff for the racing. Racing guys don't have gimbals on there, so whenever you turn the drone, you're actually turning the camera, and the image is turning. With this new image stabilization, they're able to do it without a gimbal, and it just, again, it improved the hobby from there.
And you mentioned a lot of commercials and stuff using these drones. Did you see the commercial with the Tiny Whoop, the flying around the house and flying through the was it the laundry basket or something? Yeah, that was pretty interesting. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, and when you think about shooting a TV commercial for anything, it's going to cost you $100,000 to get a helicopter out there and rent it for a day to do the shoots. Whereas $100,000 can buy you a fairly substantial drone with a fairly substantial camera that you can use for just about every video you shoot. So economically, it's smarter to use a drone than it is to use a full-sized helicopter.
We are talking to Don Price, and we'll be right back after this.
This is Michael from XP Metal Detectors Americas. Be sure to check out the new XP ORX metal detector, models starting at $649.
Hi, this is Dave D.
Hi, this is Sonia.
R.C. Dunn.
This is Alan. Yeah. We're the Minnesota Beach Boys.
This is Kendall.
This is David Kimball.
This is Grant Hansen.
Dean Center.
Lynn Quelland.
Hi, this is John.
Josh Kimmel.
Cameron Macer.
Pete Sorrell.
And we are
XP Team USA.
And you are listening to the Metal Detecting Podcast.
And we're back with Don Price.
What are some of the more reputable brands for drones if somebody's looking to get one?
The number one seller in drones right now is DJI. They're a Chinese company. They hold about 80% of the market right now. There's a company that's been around for a few years called Autel. They've been nipping at the hind legs of DJI for many years, but never able to catch up to them. They've just released a new drone at the Consumer Electronics Show this year that is actually going to be the first drone to seriously compete with DJI. So Autel is something that you want to look at. Other than that, there's really not that many companies out there that can compete with what DJI makes. There's another company called Skydio, which is an American company that has introduced a new drone that is really taking the action drones by storm as far as being able to track individuals. If you're out racing a bicycle, this drone can follow you, or racing a car or motorcycles or whatever. And it's pretty remarkable technology involved in it.
Oh, yeah, that is pretty cool. So for somebody who is interested in getting started with drones, what advice would you give them?
YouTube is your friend. That's the advice I give everybody. If you are thinking about it, get on YouTube and do some research. Finding a local group like OKC Drones here in Oklahoma and going out to the meet and greets, and you'd be surprised at how many people would be willing to hand the radio right over to you and say, here, take it for a flight. The technology is so advanced in these drones, the computers in them, it's almost impossible to crash a drone. With the technology that's out today. I have no problems with handing my radio to somebody that has never held a radio before and say, just do what I tell you to do. Push the stick up to do this, down to do that, and they get it right off the bat. There's very little learning curve. Right. People say, I'm going to go to Walmart and spend $80 on a drone to see if I can fly it, and that way if I crash it, it's not going to be as bad as if I went out and spend a lot of money. The problem is you will crash a Walmart drone. You will crash it often. Yes. You spend a little bit more money on it, you're going to get a better drone that's going to fly better, and it's going to be less apt to crash. So I tell people, don't waste your money on cheap drones. Go out there and spend a couple $100 on a good drone and start off on the right foot.
So is that kind of the budget you would suggest? $300, give or take. It's just to get something. For instance, I'm not going to do anything professionally or competitively. I want to scout land, right? Is something at that level going to be good for me?
Yeah, I would say spending at least between $300 and $500 on a good starter drone would be the way to go. I do have to caution you and the listeners out there, once you buy your first drone, you're going to get hooked. Mm-hmm. So, plan for the long term. Mm-hmm. I probably spent myself over the past 10 years, probably close to $80,000 on drones.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's very addictive.
Yes, and I would like to add, if you're going to go to a Walmart and buy a $200 drone, just send me the $200 because you will not see that drone again. Exactly. As soon as you fly it in the air, it's gone.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's a DJI, for instance, has got a new drone they just released. It's called the Mavic Mini. It's $400, or you can buy the kit with extra batteries for $500. It's the number one selling drone in America right now. More beginners are getting into drones because of that drone. It's worth going out and spending the $500 and getting it. And it's a tremendous little aircraft. And I say little, it's under 250 grams. It does not need to be registered with the FAA. And from there, the sky's the limit. It just depends on how much money you want to spend.
Oh, yes. For my first drone, I went on Craigslist and I bought a DJI Phantom 3 Advanced, and I paid like $350 for it, which was pretty good at the time when I guess 4 just came out. It is a risk doing that though, because there could be something wrong with it. It could have been crashed or whatever, but it did me pretty good.
Yeah, if you ever look into buying a used drone, the best thing to do is just fly it before you buy it. Like I said, if it's going to be anything above a Phantom, let's say a Phantom 3 or above, it's going to be pretty autonomous where it'll fly itself. and you can't go wrong. And there's a lot of the new drones that are coming out every year. People are going out and buying them and selling their older drones. So the market is full of used equipment out there that's in perfectly good shape to get started. And if you don't want to buy something new.
Yes. When do you think DJI is going to come up with the Phantom 5?
I think they're getting away from the Phantom series, and the fact that they just re-announced the Phantom 4 Pro Series 2. When compared to what everything else that they've been putting out, the Mavic series, the Inspire series, they should have already come out with a Phantom 5. I think they're getting away from the Phantom series because of the foldable drones. I think the Mavic 3 is going to come out next, and it's going to have an even better camera than what the Mavic 2 has now, because the Mavic series has been so successful, and the foldable size of the drone, people aren't going to want to go out and spend money on a Phantom series anymore. They're wanting to stay with that compactness. And now that the control systems have gotten so much smaller, the autonomy of the drones is improved so much. It would be foolish to go out and buy a bigger drone that's going to be harder to carry around than it would be to buy something like the Mavic and its foldability. Now, when you start getting up in the professional range and you start getting the drones like the Inspire 1 and the Inspire 2, those will always have a need. If you ever watch any show on the Discovery Channel that has a drone, it is an Inspire drone. It'll be the Inspire 1 or Inspire 2. The professionals are going out and buying the bigger drones. They don't care about the compactability. They want something that can take higher speeds, higher wind loads, and stay in the air longer. So I think the Phantom series is pretty much on its way out.
What advice would you give somebody who is interested in getting their Part 107? And for those who don't remember, can you please re-explain what 107 was?
Okay, the 107 certificate is there's a test that you have to take through the FAA, and it's a fairly daunting test. I mean, there's quite a bit of studying that has to be done. There's a lot of things that you have to know about atmospheric conditions, about how to read the weather, about the regulations of the FAA. It's a pretty lengthy process, and you have to do it if you're going to make any money with your drone whatsoever. And this boils down to, let's say, for instance, you want to do aerial photography for real estate. Even if you're not going to be making any money, that video could be used to make money, so you have to have your 107. The FAA is really coming down on people. A lot of real estate companies were going out and hiring amateurs that don't have their license and not paying them or compensating them in a different way. And the FAA says, no, we're not getting around that. The market right now has come way down. For instance, doing shoots for real estate companies the shoots are coming down to $100 per session, which is really low compared to what it used to be. So you have to really weigh, is it worth going out and getting the 107? Is it worth, am I really going to be making money, or is this just going to be a hobby that I might want to make money with later on? So you have to think of it that way. It's not, making money with drones is not for everybody. If you're going to make a living with it, you're going to be pounding the pavement quite a bit.
Okay. And what would the protocol be for somebody who, say, they want to film something and it is close to an airport? What should they do to make sure they can or can't do that?
Well, let me do this. Let me go over some of the regulations that we have to follow, basic regulations. For instance, we cannot fly over 400 feet above the ground. We have to take into consideration full-size aircraft operate above that, so we have to stay below 400 feet. Mm-hmm. We cannot fly within 5 miles of any airport or military base without getting prior permission from that facility. If I live near Tinker Air Force Base, if I wanted to fly within that 5 miles, I simply call the Air Force Base, tell them what I want to do, tell them that I'm not going to be over 400 feet, what kind of aircraft, the time frame I'm going to need, and I have never once been turned down. Mm. There are a lot of apps that you can get on your smartphones that, for instance, there's one called Before You Fly. There's one called Air Map. You can log on to these apps, and it will tell you if you're in an area that is considered unsafe airspace. And a lot of these apps will give you the information, the phone number of the tower that you need to contact them beforehand. When you start getting into it professionally, we have apps where we can actually log into the app and we can plan our flight in the app, and the app will communicate with the FAA and will communicate with the local airports and bases and stuff like that. and give us permission and also contact everybody that we need to contact. The app in particular is called Air Map that does that. So it's not that we can't fly within 5 miles. We have to notify them if we're going to be flying. And that doesn't only go with airports. Heliports we have to be really careful with. Your local hospital is most likely going to have a heliport, so you have to be able to communicate with them. Other regulations that we have, like I mentioned before, we cannot fly over emergency response efforts. Wildfires is a big no-no. You can't fly over, automobile accidents, stuff like that. We cannot fly. It's against the rules to fly over moving vehicles. You can only imagine, flying over an interstate and your drone falling out of the sky for whatever reason and hitting a car that's going 80 miles an hour. That's really bad news there. We have to give way to full-size aircraft. If we hear or see an aircraft in the air, we have to do everything we can to avoid that. In most cases, it's just to drop down. But full-size aircraft have priority no matter what the situation is, as far as drones are concerned. So you have to be cognitive of what you're doing when you're flying. Know where you're flying, know what you're near, and listen. Keep your eyes peeled to the sky. I always recommend to pilots, especially beginners, to have an observer with you. Have somebody that can monitor the sky while you're concentrating on the aircraft. Now, a lot of the technology that's coming up in the newer drones, it actually shows on our screen where an aircraft is in relation to us. And this is improving daily. DJI is coming out with it's called AirSense, that it takes the transponder codes from full-size aircrafts and it overlays it on our maps on the screen and shows us exactly where they are, so we know where they're at. So again, technology is improving enough to where we can see what's going on in the air around us.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So what kind of... Oh, go ahead. We were talking about the infrared drone that DJI's got, the Mavic Dual. It has that, and it's been using that aircraft sense technology for the past year and a half. And it's really interesting. You're up in the air, you're flying, and on the screen pops up an aircraft that's, 30 kilometers away. And we know where it is. I can see where it is and know the direction it's taking. And it's amazing that technology is available to us now. It's going to start coming out in all of the DJI drones in the future. Within the next year, it'll be available in all of them. So we'll be able to see not only commercial aircraft, but private aircraft, emergency helicopters and stuff like that. That information will be available to us. Wow, yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, technology is just advancing so quick within the last 10 years, especially with drones.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
With all this advancement of technology, what kind of advancements or innovations do you predict in the future for drones?
The biggest problem that drones have right now is flight time. And that goes down to the battery technology that we have. Right now, for the average consumer, the most flight time you can get out of a battery is going to be around 30 minutes. Autel has got a drone. It's called the Evo 2. They're saying 40-minute flight time. So the biggest leap that we need as far as technology in drones right now is battery technology. There is new battery technologies. In other words, solid-state batteries are coming out that's going to double our flight times. There's also hydrogen fuel cell batteries that are in the works to also increase our battery time. That's the biggest thing for us, is being able to stay in the air longer. And it all comes down to the battery technology. And right now, like I said, with a solid state battery, it's not going to just be in drones. It's going to be everything from cell phones to, any type of portable electronics. So as the battery times increase for other consumer electronics, it's going to increase in drones. As far as camera technology, I don't see that improving that much. We're going to be seeing cameras with higher megapixel ratings that are going to have a more greater zoom capabilities. But I think as far as the quality of cameras that we have, I think we're pretty much peaked out right now. As far as range on drones, right now, there's a drone out on the market. The Autel Evo 2 has got a 7 kilometer, which is over 6 miles of range. So right now, the drone that I fly, the Mavic 2 Pro, has got 5 miles of range. We are limited to our line of sight, but having that range means that we are able to fly in much higher congested areas as far as the signal strength of the radio that we've got. So when you have a drone that can do 5 miles, it'll be able to do, a mile out in a highly congested area where there's a lot of Wi-Fi interference, a lot of cell phone interference. So those technologies we've already gotten to. Again, I say what's going to benefit us the most in the future is going to be the battery capabilities, the flight time capabilities of the battery, and quicker charging times. Right now, lithium polymer is the standard in all drones. For a 30-minute flight time on a drone, it takes an hour and 20 minutes to charge that battery. Once we go to solid-state batteries, you will get a flight time of an hour to an hour and a half, and the charge times it takes to charge the battery will be down to 30 minutes, in some cases 20 minutes. So that's where the major technology leaps are going to be for us. Autonomy is already there. I have a drone that I can program in to fly a certain pattern, to fly different waypoints, to take pictures at certain points. I can set my drone up to lock onto a vehicle, and it will follow that vehicle or a person. So those technologies we've already gotten to, they will improve in time to where the tracking capabilities are more precise. But again, like I said, the main feature that we need better is in the battery technologies, and I think that's coming in the future.
Wow. So is there anything else we should know about drones but haven't asked you yet?
Oh, how much time do you have?
Think about the person who just wants to get started and get into it.
Well, like I said, the best thing to do is to get on YouTube. There are so many videos out there that can answer just about any question that anybody could ever have as far as drones is concerned. And get out and find somebody that's got one. The popularity of drones in America right now is through the roof. There's 1.5 million registered drones in the United States alone. Somebody has got a drone. Contact them and say, hey, take me out and show me what it does. And that's the best advice I can give anybody is get a radio in your hand and see what it does before you go out and buy it. But again, beware. It can end up costing you a lot of money in the long run because it's very addictive. Like I said, it is just it's that much fun. This is the first hobby I've ever had that I've actually made money off of. And I've paid for all of my drones with the money that I've made going out and working for network TV or doing TV commercials or real estate stuff. Or I've even done wedding videos where I've done aerial shots of the weddings. So for me, it was a way I could convince the wife that I need to spend more money on drones because I go out and make it. I was into off-roading in Jeeps for a long period of time, and it was costing me a fortune, and I wasn't making any money from it. So when it came time to transition into drones, it was easy. I told my wife, say, look, I can buy this and make money off. She said, no problem, let's do it.
So is there like lots of places or any places that are just completely off limits to flying, like Mount Rushmore and kind of stuff? And
national parks are off limits. There are some national parks. I'll give you one example is in Colorado, the Garden of the Gods. You can fly there. You have to pay a fee. It's $500 a day.
Wow.
That is the only national park that I know of. But like the Grand Canyon, the Statue of Liberty, the Devil's Tower, stuff like that, those are all off limits to drones. The reasoning being is that their reasoning that I'm getting from these organizations is drones are noisy. They don't want them interfering with the ambiance that you have when you go to someplace like that. They don't want the drones disturbing the wildlife. I have a problem with that. For instance, the Grand Canyon, you cannot fly a drone at the Grand Canyon, but you can take a helicopter tour ride at the Grand Canyon anytime you want. And those are a lot louder, and you would think they would disturb the sanctity of the place a lot more than a drone would. But these are things that I'm hoping will change in the future when people start seeing that drones can give us a vision of these beautiful landmarks that we just don't normally get on the ground. We're not allowed to fly near sporting events 2 hours before or 2 hours after, say, a major football game or baseball game or anything like that. Those areas are off limits. And, of course, anywhere the that the president is, there's a 30-mile radius around someplace like that. Washington, D.C. is off limits at all times. And again, there's certain apps that you get on your phones that will show you when temporary flight restrictions are up in a certain area. In Oklahoma, we have OU football and OSU football, and it's 2 hours before and 2 hours after a game. You cannot fly anywhere near the stadiums for those.
Wow. I mean, I didn't go into this conversation thinking I would learn so much, but thank you. And I have to say, I'm so eager now to get a drone and to try it. And like you say, find a friend who's got one and have him show me. And then I think I'm going to be addicted to something new here. Yes,
I can almost guarantee it. I do want to say, again, get on YouTube and research the legalities of drones and learn the rules. Learning the rules is free. You can log on to the FAA website and type in drones, and it will take you to the page that's got all the rules and regulations on it. Learn about the legal side of it before you go out and buy one. It's really not that restrictive right now. We really do have a lot of leeway, and the FAA is working a lot with the public to keep the skies safe, but also keep it fun for us. So it's not government overstepping its bounds or anything like that. It's just the main thing that I try and keep everybody well aware of is the safety aspect of it, to keep the skies safe for both, people in the air and people on the ground.
All right, Don, it was really good talking to you, and I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to your next meet and greet. We'll try to get there, and I came up there to talk to you at one time and meet you in person. You had a lot of people around you. You looked pretty busy, so I kept on doing what I was doing. So.
The meet and greets can get pretty hectic. There's so many people come up there and they have questions, and I'm pretty much the access point for all the questions they have. So I never get to fly at my own meet and greets unless I went up there incognito or something, but I'm glad I could help. And like I said, if you guys have any questions in the future, feel free to contact me. I'm available on Facebook, and you've got my phone number.
Yeah, and like you said, if anybody wants to join the group, that OKC Drones, I mean, they got a lot of information there and all the updated information, and you can see everybody else's drones and how they fly. And
yeah, and for anybody that's not in Oklahoma, OKC Drones is only open to people in Oklahoma. There's just every state has got a local community that's involved in drones. So in your area, you can look up and just do a search in your whatever the major city is, and you will find a drone group in that area. And I really encourage people to join those groups. And also, if you're looking for a specific drone, like for instance the DJI Mavic, there are Facebook groups that are specific to the drone that you're flying that are extremely helpful. I belong to 9 or 10 different groups of different manufacturers because I like to keep up on all the manufacturers' drones, and that's the best way to do it is through Facebook and the groups that they have. There's a ton of information out there to learn about drones that's available just on your computer or your smartphone. Well, yeah, again, thanks so much for this information. I'm going to do some research and look for a local club, like you say, and maybe I'll keep you posted. I'll send you some stuff, but really appreciate the education. I think everyone listening tonight is going to really enjoy it. Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm glad I could help.
All right. Well, we'll see you then.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All righty. You guys take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Check us out online at xpteamusa.com. This segment is brought to you by Omega Mill Pouches, the official digging pouch of XP Team USA. If you're looking for a rugged, hunt-tested, washable pouch, look no further than Omega Mill. Get on eBay and search Omega Mill Pouches. That's OMEGAMILL.
All right. That was Don Price, all about drones. He was very great to talk to. He's very interesting.
Really, really good to talk to. And I'll tell you, if I was just a little bit interested in getting a drone before that conversation, I'm now I think I'm just going to spend my weekend watching YouTube videos and trying to figure out how to get started.
Yeah. It's a great hobby. It's a great hobby. You get addicted to it like anything else, like metal detecting. Yeah. You get addicted to it. It's money, more money.
Right.
My wife,
I never really considered the financial end of the possibility of making money as a competent drone flyer. So that's pretty interesting too.
Oh, yes. A couple of years ago when I first got into it, I started looking into it as I was wanting to do it professionally and make some money, but the market is flooded. There's a lot of people who have done that. They went out and got their 107, and you look it up online, you can see a lot of people up there wanting to do real estate photography and a lot of weddings and everything else. They even have farms where you can check the crops in the farms without walking out into the fields. And they even have drones that you can come down and check the soil. It'll take soil samples in certain spots of the farms.
Wow. It's I've heard that for years. Amazon wants to do drone delivery, and you kind of see. I think you're going to be a lot more common in the sky.
Yes, yeah. I don't really think that's realistic though with Amazon. Just for the simple fact that somebody gets too close to a drone, they're going to get hurt, or I guess they could put guards on the things, but still. People are going to
I don't see it happening either, because based on what Don was telling us with the regulations and the 5 miles from the airport, I mean, I live in my house is 5 miles from an airport, less than that. So it's a small airport, but it's still an airport. Right. So I got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I am just outside of the 5 mile radius of an airport, of a Air Force base. And I have a small landing strip not too far from me. It's a private landing strip. Yeah, you got to watch out. You got to download the apps that he was talking about, like Air Maps. It'll tell you where you can and where you can't fly and all that. And there's another app called Before You Fly, and that even tells you the weather and stuff. If it's really windy out in your area, it'll have like a red banner over it, and it'll say it's not a good day to fly. It doesn't tell you can't fly, but it just says like this is not a good day for you to fly a drone.
Yeah, those resources like that are critical to making sure. Even again, if you've got the best drone and you try to bring it out in terrible windy weather, maybe you won't get it back.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't still lose them, even if they got the top-notch GPS. You can still lose them. Yeah. Go to if you want to learn some more, you can go to YouTube and check out guys like Ken Heron. He does a lot of he checks a lot of new equipment and flies drones and kind of shows you some stuff. Also, there's a website and a podcast called Drone U, and they get into detail about every laws and everything that you can use your drone for. People call them and ask them, hey, I want to get into this with drones, and they'll explain it in detail, and it's a very good resource in learning.
Yeah, YouTube's amazing, and podcasts like ours, and I think the world is at your fingertips for that information.
Oh yeah, and we got our own YouTube shows too. We got a couple of new ones out. Dave D did some.
Yeah, Dave D's got a really cool one where he's using American settings in the UK and comparing them side by side to see how it performs. And I know he's out on the hunt for his first hammered coin, and he's got a two-parter, so I'm anticipating part 2 to see if he finds that hammered.
Oh yeah, great video.
Yep. And we've got a whole other bunch of videos too. If you've never seen them, whether it's just straight up detecting or skill stuff like on reactivity or the MI6. We also broadcast our podcast on YouTube. So a good active channel.
Check us out for our next podcast. Will be March 6th, and we really look forward to talking to y'all.
Yeah, see you then.
All right, see you.
That's perfect.
Get that permission, put the coil to the soil, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Metal Detecting Podcast, brought to you by XP Metal Detectors.